Thank you, Julie. Welcome to this evening's webinar. I've been rattling away without realizing my microphone had been muted. So very thankful that Julie highlighted that. And what I was actually saying was, can you type whether you can hear me or not? And clearly you couldn't. So thank you, Julie, for that. And welcome to this evening's webinar. And we should start again. Now you can hear me. I basically want to do a bit of housekeeping, just so you know how to ask questions. People saying they still can't hear. I'm hoping there's a little bit of delay. There's a bit of delay in this webinar setup, so there's no kind of freezing or delay once it streams to you. So if you can hear me, there should be a little chat box to the right of your screen. There's a sidebar, the chat box. If you just type in the chat box, say, hi, I can hear you, or not. If you can't, hopefully we should make sure this technology is working. Also, that's a way to ask questions in the chat box. If you just type any question at any point, I'm just glancing the chat box, see what's coming in to make sure this is actually working, and I can focus on speaking to you. So I'm just going to pause a little bit to make sure this is working. Some of them are saying they still can't hear. There you go, it's now coming through. Excellent, just I thought. So yeah, thank you for that. So that's how to ask questions at any point this evening. You can type questions in that chat box, and I'll also be glancing there just to see what questions are coming in. Some questions have been sent beforehand. So that's how you can interact during the webinar. Just type your question at any point you want, and I shall come to it when I can. Those who've been on webinars with me before may realise in the past I mainly just show slides. You don't really see my face. This evening I'm trying to do things a little bit different. Trying to get in front of the camera more, see if we can connect in a bit more personal way. So it's a bit new to me. I'm doing it this way, so bear with me. I have a couple of slides to show. And hopefully we should transition smoothly, and I should remember to look at the camera and look at the screen or anywhere else. So I'm hoping this kind of format works for you. So a little bit about myself. Those who don't know anything about myself, my background, I'm Russell Davis. I'm a fertility coach and cognitive hypnotherapist. My wife and I had 10 years experience of infertility. First my wife and then me. But we actually went on to conceive naturally while we're exploring ICSI. And I'll explain a bit more about our journey as we go through this evening. So we've got some personal experience of fertility, and I firmly believe that too many couples go through fertility treatments unnecessarily, and we would have been another statistic of that. But also believe that the success rate of fertility treatment is unnecessarily low because the mind and emotions are not factored in the journey. So I'm passionate about helping women and couples on their journey find a more sense of peace of mind on their journey, getting off the emotional roller coaster, as well as harnessing the mind-body link. And we'll explaining more about that as we go through this evening. So that's a bit about myself. I love running. Those who know, follow my emails. I love running, barefoot running. I love Apple Macs. I love Land Rovers. All sorts of things about myself. So it's nice to connect a bit more to the face or the voice. I'm more and more just getting more passionate about, dare I say it, changing the face of fertility support in the UK, in the US, as many countries as possible. I have a lot of subscribers and clients in the US and all over the world, as well as here in the UK. And just my own personal experience and working with clients, I just feel really quite often downhearted about the level of emotional support that people get on this journey, from the very early first step of seeing their GP all the way through and going through treatment, if they go through treatment. I think it can be a very lonely journey, and I'm very passionate about making sure people have a high quality mental and emotional support on this journey, because I believe it can make such a big difference to the outcome as well as people's experiences on the journey. This is why I do it. I can look back and see how our mind and emotions played such a big role in our journey. And if we knew then what we know now, our journey would not have been 10 years long. So that's one of the reasons I'm quite passionate about doing what I do. And so I'll share first slide just to show you a study. If you can see this now, it's a study carried out by, this was in Cardiff University, with some other universities. And it's the reasons people kind of end treatment. These are the top 9 reasons people end treatment. And the first one is postponement of treatment. So for many reasons, people don't actually end it and give up and stop. They maybe postpone it for a while. Second reason, unknown, not sure why it was unknown, but that was unknown, was the second largest category from this study. But the third largest category was a psychological burden. So the third top reason for ending treatment was the psychological burden. And it kind of doesn't surprise me in many ways, speaking to my clients and speaking to people on this journey. Number 4 was the physical burden. 5 was personal reasons, not sure what they may have been. Number 6, relational problems. And I think this journey can put a strain on the best of relationships. So actually, we're going to talk about relationships this evening as well. And it's becoming more and more important part of my work. So I see it as part of being supported and being understood. And it's quite a big part, I think, of our kind of emotional kind of well-being, not just kind of relationships with our partners or spouses. It could be relationships with friends and family as well. So for me, yeah, kind of psychological impact as relational impact can play a huge role on people's outcomes and when they even continue treatments. And there's other studies that show, this kind of fertility journey can put a huge strain on relationships. And it can be a vicious circle, how the strain of relationships can cause more stress, and the stress can be impacting fertility. We're going to come on to that a little bit more. And so it's one of the reasons why I do this. I see any of the studies are showing how important the kind of emotional journey can be, and how that can be impacting our physical journey more than we maybe anticipate. So this evening, what we're looking at, we'll be looking at kind of 3 main areas. Mindset, for me, that's the foundation of all this work. If you're really stressed and fearful, then it's going to be, you'll be swimming against the tide in natural fertility, as well as assisted conception, as well as all the things we do to try and improve our fertility. If we're coming from a fearful, stressed place, that fear and that stress can be undermining all the good things we do and try and do to improve our fertility. I say relationships, I want to touch on relationships because I think that's quite a big area as well. And I think a massive shift can happen in there. And even the best of relationships, I think, having some skills and some tools to ensure our communication is more efficient can make a big difference. And then the mind-body link, I think this is a massively underutilized area in many ways. So I want to share some of my personal experience of how I harness the mind-body link in my own life today, as well as through our fertility journey with clients as well, and some of the things you can do to harness that more and more, so you can actively use the mind-body link for your benefit rather than unconsciously using it in a detrimental way, because your mind will be affecting your body whether you're kind of aware of it or not. So the more we're aware of it and aware how it could be affecting our body, we could be harnessing it in a more positive way. So that's some of the things we're going to be talking about. If you just joined us, the chat box is a place to type any questions. Just to say, the questions are completely private. No one can see them except me. So if you want about any names coming up, anything else, it's completely private, and I shall come to them as I get through to go through this evening. So starting with mindset then. So for me, the biggest thing about mindset is, as I said, it's a foundation, I think, of all the work I do, is to help people find that more balanced kind of peace of mind, and more a sense of kind of emotional well-being and peace of mind. I can look back on our journey and see how I wasn't so consciously aware of it at the time, but fearful I was of us not getting pregnant. And I think that fear can undermine all the good things we do. I went through a bit more about our journey. My wife was diagnosed with fertility problems, and then after an 8-year journey to improve her fertility, she got a full cycle back, and for the first time, having children was a real possibility for us. And after a year or so of trying, we could clearly think, okay, there's something wrong. By that point, as you know, you become quite fertility experts on this journey, and we could really tell, okay, there's something else wrong. And it was at that point I had my first test, and no one ever even considered I should have a test ahead of that. No one suspected there could anything be wrong with me. And it's one of the things I often suggest to clients. If the man hasn't been tested, then just go and get a test, just rule it out early on, because often we make assumptions that obviously the women's kind of reproduction system is more complex in many ways. So I got my first test, and it was disastrous across the board. Counts, morphology, mobility. It was disastrous. I'll never forget the doctor asking me whether I'd ever been exposed to dangerous levels of radiation, and I never, not aware of being exposed to radiation. But male sperm regenerates every 3 months. So I went on a 4-month journey to try and improve my fertility, doing all sorts of things I firmly believe can make a big difference. And I still use in different ways in my own life today, whether it's acupuncture, herbs, nutrition, lifestyle. Back then, I also know switch to baggy pants, not keeping the phone in my pocket, all sorts of things to try and improve my fertility. And after 4 months, did another test, and in fact, the test results were even slightly worse. The doctors didn't believe they could get any worse. And for me, it was like the lowest point in our journey. But actually, I can look back and see some of the positives that come from that, and I'll share some of those in a bit. But I can look back now and see, actually, I think I did all those things, but it was my fear of those things not working. I was so subconsciously desperate for us to have a child. I really believed our happiness was dependent on having a child. Because I can look back and see how almost all through my life, I've been living my life telling myself, I'll be happy when this happens, or if this happens. I'll be okay when this happens. And there's elements of when I was young, constantly trying to prove myself. I'll be okay once I've got my good grades at school. I'll be okay when I get my degree and prove to people that I can do it. I've reached whatever state of mind or wherever I was trying to prove. Then it was, I'll be okay when I get a good career and get the career underway. I'll be happy then. Well, I'll be happy when I get married, when I got married. And then it'll be, oh, I'll be happy when we have children. And there's this subconscious, I'll be happy when. And that's what our thinking does. Our thinking is always looking for what we need to be happy. And it's looking outside of us for the answer. And because it's looking in the wrong place, it's like being on a treadmill or a hamster wheel. It's always the next thing. And I see it with my clients. They've been very successful in many areas of their life. They've striven to be successful in their career or business or relationships or something else. And that element of success in the physical world, or what we think we need to be happy in the physical world, is very short-lived. It gives a short burst of happiness in a way. We get that promotion, or we reach that level of income we thought we needed. But then it becomes the next thing, the next thing, and the next thing. And I, of course, wasn't consciously aware of this at the time, but that was what's happening. So my fear of us not having a baby, I believe, undermined all those good things I was doing, because when I got the test results and realized actually they got worse, I thought, okay, there's nothing I can do to make this happen. Absolutely nothing I can do to make this happen. So I gave up trying. I thought there's no point in me trying. So we were still seeing the clinic and exploring options with the clinic, but I gave up even trying to improve my fertility. And it caused a bit of an emotional kind of, not a meltdown, but a bit of a kind of a midlife crisis type kind of experience, in a way that suddenly, subconsciously, I was thinking, well, I'll be happy when this happens. I'll be happy when this happens. The next thing, which was having a baby, clearly wasn't happening. And the chances of it happening was pretty small, because even the clinic was saying maybe ICSI may be a bit doubtful with my test results. So suddenly thinking, okay, so where does happiness come from? How am I ever going to be happy? So I went on this little journey to explore this life, and what was going on. Because I had all these things in my life, a very good career and a wife and a house, all this kind of stuff. All the things that I think life was telling me, my thinking was telling me I need to be happy. If I was really honest, I wasn't happy. Well, I wasn't content. It was like a pleasurable life. I wouldn't say there's a real deep-seated content in life, or meaningful life, an inspired life. So I went on this little journey of exploration of, okay, what's life about? Where does happiness come from? And I started to explore some of my thoughts and my feelings, my thoughts and beliefs that actually have been there all my life, that maybe I've been denying or not really accepting, or haven't really come to the forefront. And I believe this from my experience with my clients, that we have thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and life generally that we bring to our fertility journey. We don't develop new thoughts and beliefs about ourselves and life within the journey. But sometimes the journey can highlight these things or shine a spotlight on these things. And for me, it was things like, I didn't deserve good things. I believed I didn't deserve good things. Or I believed other people got things in life that made them happy so much easier than me. Life is so much harder for me. All these kind of limiting beliefs that went down even to the level I didn't believe I was loved or lovable. And it was very subtle because I didn't really have low self-esteem or anything like that, but I was very much a people pleaser. Very much running around trying to make people happy. I had all my life. There's my teachers or my employers. So subconsciously I was living life through the thinking, the lens of I'm okay if they think I'm okay. Constantly striving to try and be okay and prove myself. So all these thoughts and beliefs came to the surface, and I could be able to process them and let them go and find this place of peace. A place of peace without giving up. And a lot of people don't believe that place exists. A lot of people believe, well, you never find that sense of peace until you've really let go and given up the journey. Well, that's not true. You can find a place of peace and acceptance and or allowance of what is, while still exploring the journey. But what happens when you get to that space, it's about realize you don't need the baby to be happy. It's not a psychological need. It's recognizing you are okay. I am okay as I am. I still like to explore having a baby. It becomes like a preference rather than a kind of subconscious need. So one hand I hold that actually I'm over hand. One hand I hold actually I'm okay, and the other hand it's holding this goal, this aspiration, whether it's having a baby or building a career, wherever it may be. When you have in one hand knowing you're okay, and the other hand holding that goal lightly, the creative energy between the two can move us forward and creating what we want in our life. If we think we need it to be okay, then the fear of it not happening kicks in. It's very hard to create anything in our life from a place of fear. So for me, this kind of psychological mindset is really key to continue this journey without swimming against the tide. Talking about a tide, I want you to imagine this. I want you to imagine there's a man walking on the bank of a deep, fast-flowing river. He looks out across the water and he sees someone drowning. So he jumps into the water and he swims out and he saves them. He pulls them onto the bank of the river. Now, as soon as he's done that, he realizes someone else is struggling in the water, so he swims out to rescue them. He goes backwards and forwards, constantly saving people from this river. Soon, some of the people he saved get back in the water to help him rescue these people from the river. After a while, it's quite a collection of people on the bank of the river. Some go look for some firewood, some go look for some food. It becomes quite a community of people saving these people from the river. After a while, the man that started all this just upped and left and disappeared. And the people left behind continuing this work couldn't believe he could be so heartless and callous to desert these people in their hour of need. But they continued to pull these people from the water. And gradually, the number of people needed rescued reduced, and it stopped. And shortly after that, the man reappeared. They said to him, how can you be so heartless and callous to desert these people in their hour of need? He said, I didn't desert them. I didn't leave them. I went further upstream to find out why they're falling in the river in the first place. And I think often in life we look too far downstream for the answers. Often in life we're looking at maybe trying to change our behaviours or to get behavioural outcomes. A lot of people know if they want to change their behaviour, know what to do that. A lot of people find they obsess around their fertility, constantly searching for the latest thing or something's going to help them. And they know it's not actually helping them, but they continue to do it. It's very hard to stop. It's because what drives our behaviours is our emotions, our feelings. It's very hard to change your behaviour without dealing with the underlying emotion that's driving that behaviour. So it could be a fear. There's an element of, fake it till you make it. There's an element of truth in that. So if you want to feel more confident, take a deep breath, stand taller, you will feel more confidence. There is an element of truth in that. But is it swim against the tide? And you don't deal with the underlying emotions, you swim against the tide. So a lot of forms of self-help focus on our emotions. Tell me how you feel about that. Or tell me about your mother. And they believe you have to talk these emotions out or reparent yourself in some way to let them go. And in my experience, the more you focus on something, the more you get. But also it's not looking for far enough upstream, because if you go further upstream, what creates our emotions is our thoughts. We're only ever feeling our thinking. It really looks like we're feeling the outside world. It really looks like we're feeling the test results or what's coming up in a week's time, or the fear of maybe losing our jobs, whatever it may be. It feels like we're feeling our circumstances, the physical world around us. But that's the illusion, that's the misunderstanding I come on to. You live in the experience of your thinking in that moment, nothing else. When the boss is angry with us, we feel rubbish. It's what we're thinking about that creates that feeling. That's why two people can have very similar circumstances but have a very different experience. Because we're not feeling our circumstances, we're feeling our thinking around it. And if you go further upstream, we come to our thinking. So our thinking is behind our emotions. So a lot of forms of self-help look at the content of our thinking. Positive affirmations, change the content of your thinking. Mindfulness, quieten your thinking. That can be really, really hard work because your thinking is probably around for quite a while. So trying to change your thinking can be really hard work. So for me, it's not the content of our thinking that's the problem. If I asked you this magic pill question, if I asked you if you take this magic pill, you'd never think again, would you take it? And 99.99% of people say no, because although they want to change the profile of our thinking, the content of their thinking, they think thinking is useful. But that here lies the problem. It's not the content of our thinking that's a problem. It's the fact we think it's helpful. It's the fact we think it matters, or some of it. We're constantly trying to manage our thinking, get rid of the unhelpful thinking, hold on to the useful thinking. Now that's when up chasing our tail. So misunderstanding the nature of thought means we keep playing in that space of thought. When we let our thinking go, we automatically drop into a much more contented, peaceful place. Our intuition, our instincts, our wisdom, which includes our life experience, our knowledge, our intellect. So for me, the key of finding this kind of more healthy psychological mindset, and I believe even for me and my clients, by finding that sense of peace within me, by realizing I wasn't happy in life, and I realized I felt like a victim in life. I had all these beliefs, this content of my thinking was telling me I'm a victim in life. So much life is so much harder for me. When I let that go and find a more sense of peace, I realized I am okay. And we're all equal. We're all made of the same energy behind life. We're all equal. We can all create more of the life we want. I did things like I resigned from the job I wasn't really enjoying. But I hang on to it for so long because it was very well paid, it was safe, it was secure, it was a good career. All the things I think I should be doing it for, I resigned. I started making steps to be more me, to allow myself to be more me. One of the top 5 regrets of the dying, according to a palliative care nurse in Australia, is that I wish I'd lived the life I wanted rather than the life others expected of me. So I started doing that. 4 months later, my wife was pregnant naturally. 1 in a billion chance we were told that would happen. So I did a test result quite soon after because I was intrigued, and they improved dramatically without me even trying. And I firmly believe it's because I fell into a more healthy psychological mindset. So my body fell into a more natural, healthy biological state. It felt like I'd moved from being a square peg in a round hole to being comfortable in my own skin. Realizing I didn't have the inspired life I wanted. I was in a job I wasn't enjoying, but I'm taking those steps to change that. And I really had this sense of, I know I can be content in this life. Whether it involves children or not, I don't know. I truly hope it does, but I know I can be content in this life. I can move from being a victim to being a creator of the life I want. So for me, this mindset is a massive, massive aspect of the jigsaw, the foundation for me that we build upon. I could talk for mindset for hours, but I'm going to leave it there just to give you an indication of what I mean by mindset and how our mindset can get in the way of things. Because you're going to touch on mindset when it comes to the other aspects we're going to talk about this evening. Just checking if any questions come in. Please do type any questions you may have. Some people say they still can't hear, other people say they can hear, so I'm going to continue because I think most people can hear in the recording. We're fine because I can see the green dots going, so the recording should be fine. So the second aspect I want to talk about this evening is relationships. It was 8 years into our journey. My wife said to me that she didn't feel united on the journey. It really shocked me. It kind of really upset me in a way as well, because I thought I was a good husband and I thought I'd do all the things I needed to do to support her. I went to all the appointments. We talked about things. But she said she didn't feel united on the journey because she said she didn't have no idea what was going on in here for me. She said the emotional connection wasn't there. Yes, I was there physically. Yes, I showed up to the appointments. We talked about practicality things, logistics and practical things. But she didn't know how I really felt in my heart about our journey and how it was for me. And it's part of my kind of journey of kind of really recognizing what was going on for me, as in my thinking and my beliefs about myself and life. When I could recognize what she was saying, I wanted to do something about it. So I started to explore what she meant by these things called emotions, because she started going through a grieving process. And I would say I was angry, but I didn't really feel angry. I felt quite disconnected from my emotions. I started to explore more and more about these things called emotions and how men and women relate. And I suddenly realized, through talking to my wife as well, that I thought I was being a good listener. And I really realized I wasn't. And through my work with couples, I really think one of the best things we can do is educate men to be better listeners, or to be able to engage with their partner more. And I've been very stereotypical here about men and women. It's not always gender specific, of course. The same thing could be within a same-sex relationship. But I think there can be some stereotypes in how men show up, and there's a difference between male energy and female energy. We all have male energy, female energy within us. When it comes to a romantic relationship, often the man has more male energy and the woman has more female energy, but it's not always the case. So forgive me for stereotyping, but just to get a point across so you can understand what I mean by it. And in my situation, very much it was me as the man who wasn't able to understand my wife, what she was trying to communicate. And I'll give you some examples. I suddenly realized, actually, when we communicated, when she was talking and sharing how she felt about something, again, I was in my thinking. I lived in my thinking. It was a habit for me. And in many ways, it's a habit because it prevented me from feeling things. And I was thinking about what I could do to fix or help her in what she was sharing. Because, of course, I didn't want her to feel pain or sorrow or whatever it is. It's very much, it was easy for me to jump in to try and fix her problem. And what I realized through my journey of understanding more about men and women, how we interact, is that it's not what she wanted. She just wanted to be understood. She wanted me to understand how she felt. She didn't want me to fix her problems. In fact, in me trying to fix her problems, a couple of things were happening. One was I was almost belittling her in a way that assumed that she couldn't solve her own problem. And secondly, I wasn't really hearing what she was trying to communicate, which is the emotion, what she was feeling. So it left her feeling misunderstood or not really heard. And I think generically men and women can communicate differently. Men can often communicate transactionally. They share facts and information as and when required. When they're going to meet, when they're not going to meet, this, that, the other. It's very transactional based communication. Women communicate to be understood, to be heard. Men only communicate a problem or a situation if they're looking for someone to help them with it. Women often communicate a problem or a situation because they want to be understood in it. Not for it to be fixed, so they can be understood in it. It took me a long time in our marriage to recognize that. And one of the things I'm quite passionate about doing is helping people, I guess, make their communication as effective as possible. Because we're all different. Even we have different personality types within men and within women. And it's not just it's not just gender specific, it's personality type specific. We give and receive love in different ways. As a relationship coach in America, 25 years experience, he summarized the top five ways people kind of communicate love, like different languages, different ways of communicating love. And we tend to communicate love in the way we prefer to receive it, which may not be the way our partner prefers to receive it. So I had this assumption that the way I operated, my model of the world in my head was the same as everyone else's. And I communicated in a way that I thought was best to communicate because that's the way I thought about it. It made me realize, my wife's very different. I need to be communicating in a way that she understands. I need to let go of my thinking, my judgments. It's very easy for when she communicated a feeling. I'll give you a very minor example. When it comes to driving, often within a couple, the woman doesn't like their partner's driving. And I'm not a very particularly fast driver, but there are times my wife would say she felt scared. Well, she wouldn't start with that. She'd start by saying, "You're driving too close to the car in front," or "You're driving too quickly." And I'd hear it as a criticism. When we hear things through our thinking, we make it about us and we get defensive. And I say, "No, I'm not." And I justify what I'm saying, thinking, I generally didn't believe I was driving too fast. I generally believe I was driving safely. Well, I justify it by thinking, men must have better spatial awareness than women. I get frustrated by hearing what I heard was a criticism. But my wife wasn't trying to criticize me. She was trying to communicate how she felt. It was actually what was behind the thought that you're driving too fast was a feeling of I'm feeling scared. So we got through that bit of realizing actually it's more helpful to communicate a feeling rather than a judgment, because the judgment can be heard as a criticism. She started communicating, I'm feeling scared. Then if I hear that through my thinking, it's very easy for me to judge that as being unnecessary. There's no need to be scared. We're fine. But again, I'm hearing it through my thinking as a judgment. And when I soon begin to realize she's trying to communicate a feeling, she wants to feel understood. If I listen to that without judgment, to just hear what she's trying to communicate, that she's feeling scared. Do I want someone I love to feel scared? No, I don't. I would automatically slow down when I have that realization. She's feeling scared. And I strip away my thoughts and my judgments around it and connect to what she's really feeling. I'd slow down. And of course, over time, when she knows I'd respond in a positive way when she's feeling scared, she relaxes more into my driving anyway, so it happens less and less. But the big thing for me was recognizing how I was hearing what she was saying through my thoughts and my judgments. I was hearing what she's saying as if I needed to fix it or change it, make it okay. At the same time, make sure I'm not in trouble. I have a habit from childhood making sure that I'm not in trouble. And I get really sensitive to unfair or unjust criticism. But I judge as unfair or criticism. So I realized that my communication was being polluted by my thinking rather than hearing what she was really communicating. So we learned ways to communicate in a far more effective way. So I could hear things of what she is trying to really communicate. I could hear the feelings she's wanting to share with me. And at the same time, I went on a journey to understand my feelings. So I could share my feelings, share how I felt about the journey, about the treatment or this or that. Because when we share how we feel, we create more of a deeper bond with our partner, whoever, friends, family, partner. So going back to when she started about saying that she didn't feel united, it's because I wasn't sharing my feelings. I was so caught into my thinking, I was disconnected from my feelings. So I went on a journey to be more connected to those feelings. So I could articulate how I felt. I used to write things down. I found that when I wrote it down, I could know I'm focusing on my feelings. It helped me just tune into my feelings more. So I think looking at how we communicate and letting go of our assumptions, what it means to communicate, letting go of our assumptions about what we think our partner wants in that moment. I think we have a real opportunity to really, dare I say, train men to listen to their partner, listen to women in a more effective way. And I think also, having women to understand men slightly more, that because the differences between men and women come to the forefront, particularly in times of stress. For example, in times of stress, men go quiet. They go into their cave. They just want to do nothing. They're like channel surf. And nothing infuriates a woman more than seeing a man doing nothing. But they're just processing their stress. Women in times of stress want to talk about it. So this is very, very different approaches in times of stress. And if you don't understand the other person's approach, we can take it personally. And a lot of women, a lot of my female clients and women say, oh, my man doesn't talk to me. And they take it personally, or maybe he's just stressed and he needs to go into his cave. So it's an element of understanding each other's way of communicating, way of dealing with things. But then both have got to learn to get out their own comfort zone, their own model of the world, and connect in the other way, the way their partner really connects with. So you can't use it as an excuse, so I'm just a man, I don't do that. That's just an excuse. So at times, we'll go into my cave. But I also know I've got to get out of my cave and connect with my wife in a way that she understands. Otherwise, there's not going to be that kind of deep connection. There's not going to be that emotional unity. I want to come on to explain some ways where you can do that, some really tools and techniques we can utilize to harness that deeper level of connection. So I think my encouragement is to have some honest conversations with your partner. Have an evening where it's like a relationship MOT, because the best of relationships do need some maintenance. We go through stages of a relationship when we first meet. It's just so easy. And my wife would say sometimes that, you know, the man I was when we first met was very different to the man that came in the stable, more mature relationship. It's because when we're in love and endorphins are flowing, the relationship just seems easy. Nothing the other person does annoys us. We don't just see them. We're blind to the things that annoy us. Like I never noticed when we were going out or first met in that kind of love relationship, she'd always leave the sun visor down in the car. That infuriated me eventually. So as the relationship matures, we start to have things that basically bug us about each other. Or we go back into our default way of being. I retreated back into my shell of my thinking. So sometimes, yeah, relationships do need maintenance. And this journey can put the strain the best of relationships. So having that honest conversation. How loved do you feel? We know we love each other, but how loved do you feel? What can your partner do to help you feel more loved? How loved do they feel? What can you do to help them feel more loved? Don't make an assumption about how loved they feel or what it means to do to demonstrate your love to them. Let them describe in their model of the world what you do that can make a difference to them. And having these honest conversations can really make a massive difference to a relationship. I know I'm just scratching the surface of many of these things, but hopefully it's prompting questions, and I can explain a bit more at the end how we can go deeper on these things. Just checking questions. It's not scrolling. How can I? There's one come in, but I can't see it all due to my screen for some reason. I'll have to come back to that. Okay, I've got it here now. How do you get the I am okay mindset? How do you get to the I am okay mindset? Questions come in. I think what stops us from having this I am okay mindset is a misunderstanding. A misunderstanding of how our mind works and what creates our human experience. And I'll break it down. And I want you to listen to this, not for intellectual understanding. Maybe I should have said this at the beginning. But listen for feeling within as I speak, because it's an understanding that we can't almost comprehend in our human brain. Trying to understand how the human brain works, what creates our human experience, is almost beyond what our physical human brain can comprehend. But our soul is formless. Our soul gets it, resonates in our soul in some way. So it comes from within. So as you listen to the feeling within. So misunderstandings, I think 3 misunderstandings, so break it down to try and make it understandable. One is, which I touched on earlier, misunderstanding the nature of a thought. If we think our thinking is useful, we're going to constantly be chasing the tail of our thinking. I'll give the example that it's possible to have a thought and not think it's important, or not act on it, or not think it matters. For example, you'll get crazy thoughts if you're honest. And I could be in a queue and be in a hurry and think, oh, should I push that person out of the way? I'd never do it. I met a psychiatrist once saying that it could be at a zebra crossing. I think, once I plow through those people crossing the road, he would never do it. And those thoughts are gone and forgotten about as quickly as they come in. And they do that. They're like clouds in a breeze because we think they don't matter. Other thoughts come in like, well, I wonder if that's going to happen. What if that doesn't happen? What if I don't get a positive test at the end of the month? It's still a thought. We judge that as being more important. We judge it as being important to our psychological well-being. Just begin to recognize anything that comes into our head as a thought is just a thought. It's not truth. It doesn't actually lead us to well-being. In fact, we're looking at life through the lens of our childhood thinking. So it's my thoughts and beliefs, I don't deserve good things, I'm not lovable. It's that thinking I was looking at life through the filter of that childhood thinking, which was polluting my present experience. Another thing about thought is to recognize that any thought that's not in the present moment is pure fantasy. Now, we often think of fantasy as unrealistic things like people flying or pigs flying. And these thoughts come in, they're perfectly plausible. They're perfectly realistic. And your thinking might find all the evidence on the past to back up this thought. But any thought that's not in the present moment is pure fantasy. Because nothing can predict the future, not even your thinking. Nothing can predict the future, not even your thinking. So it's a misunderstanding of the nature of a thought. That thoughts are just thoughts. Neither are good or bad, right or wrong. They're just thoughts. And some really appear to be more useful than others. But we have two guidance mechanisms within us. One is our thinking. The other is our instinct, our intuition. It's about knowing actually that's a better guidance mechanism for you. Second thing is a misunderstanding of what creates our feelings. We have a feeling and we tell ourselves, I'm feeling stressed because of this. I'm feeling stressed because I'm not sure whether the internet's going to work tonight for the webinar. I'm feeling stressed because I don't know whether this is going to happen or that's going to happen. I'm feeling stressed because I'm not sure the car's going to start. Whatever it may be. And it feels like the feeling of stress is coming again from those circumstances, or those potential circumstances. And our thinking wants us to be okay. It doesn't want us to feel stressed. It's just trying to second guess things all the time to make sure we're a clear path, a stress-free path. But the truth is, we're not feeling those circumstances. Your feelings know nothing about the future because it doesn't exist. Our feelings know nothing about our circumstances. We're feeling our thinking. So yeah, you might be feeling stressed. This is about never feeling any stress. This is not about being in a 100% sense of zen peace of mind. We're human beings. We go up and down. It's about recognizing what's triggering up and down. What are we feeling? If you go down to feeling low, you've got some low thinking right now. It's a habit. You can't control your thinking. Thinking is spontaneous. But when we think there's a reason for the feeling, we go looking for what you do to fix that so we can feel okay again. That keeps us on the roller coaster. That keeps us trapped. That stops us moving back to peace of mind. And it's actually a self-correcting system. The more we try and play with it, the more we interrupt it, the more we realize actually it is a self-correcting system because our natural default state is peace of mind. How we come into the world as a baby with a sense of peace and well-being. Little children just be in the moment. We're human beings. But it's like we're treading water. And the more we try to thrash around trying to be okay, the more we're putting ourselves at risk. The more we relax and know, I'm just feeling this because of thoughts passing through. It's not what it looks like. When we see through the illusion of our thinking, our feeling, we automatically float to the surface. The more we try to fix things and be okay, the more we tie ourselves into knots. And the third misunderstanding is a misunderstanding of what's creating our human experience. It's about thoughts and feelings. That's what's creating our human experience. And our well-being is within us. So it's a misunderstanding where our well-being comes from. Your well-being comes from within you. You're born with it. It's not dependent on anything that's out there. And I'll give an example. The days that feel better than others, and some days that feel better than others because it's a natural, our thinking goes up and down. But the days you feel like in a state of flow, you're on fire going through the day and you're performing really well at work, it's bang, 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 and just effortless. And you're feeling really good and it's effortless. And other days you feel like wading through treacle. You've got the world treacle, you've got the weight of the world on your shoulders. What are you consciously thinking differently in those days that feel like effortless, that day of flow? Well, the truth is you're not thinking anything. It's a non-thinking state. You're just going through it more effortlessly. You're being guided by your intuition, your instinct, which includes your knowledge, your intellect, your life experience. You're not trying to be okay. You just fall into that space without trying. And the more we let go of trying to be okay, we fall into that space. The more we recognize what's creating our feelings, they move on like clouds on a breeze, because the thinking moves on. And we return to that innate peace of mind. So I hope that's getting a little bit more. And so it's not a point 1, point 2, point 3, do A, do B, do C. It is more of an understanding that frees us from this. An understanding what's creating our human experience frees us from this. Quite conscious of time, and I've got another section to go through, but there's a question on relationships. On relationships, but with friends rather than the partner, do you have any advice on how to cope when everyone seems to be having a baby but you, and the inevitable guilt that comes with the envy and sadness you feel? Yeah. We were lucky to go through a lot of our journey with very close friends who were going through similar experience to us. And we always knew at some point that one couple may get pregnant or before the other one. And when it happened, I thought I'd be okay with it. And they got pregnant first. And it was still just so tough. And in fact, it affected the friendship really quite badly for some time. Because I was carrying this guilt, I wasn't feeling happy, I was carrying this kind of sense of envy. And one of the things I think it fuels that is a lack of understanding from their part of what we're going through. Because if you haven't been through this experience, it's very hard for friends and family to really understand what we're going through. And they say sometimes the most unhelpful things. So the first thing to recognize is, where's that feeling of envy coming from? It's what you're telling yourself. It's the lens you're looking through that situation through. Telling yourself maybe it may never happen for you. Or it's not fair, it doesn't happen to you, it happens for them. So again, it's not the fact they're pregnant, it's the thinking you wrap around that is creating your experience. And often we're not aware of that. So the more we become aware of what's creating our feelings and our experience, the more we can get off the roller coaster. Because the thinking is also telling you your happiness and well-being is dependent on you having a baby. And that's the misunderstanding where well-being comes from. So as well as just understanding what's creating your experience, the second thing is the fact you feel envious is not a problem. It's human nature. It's very hard not to feel envious in those kind of situations. So we get these thoughts, we get these feelings, we're human beings. It's what we think about it afterwards. It's whether we think it matters or not. So the guilt is saying, I shouldn't be feeling that. So there's a lack of acceptance of actually you having those feelings. So you've got more thinking. So you've got a bunch of thinking that makes you feel envious. Then you've got a bunch of thinking about the fact you're feeling envious that makes you feel guilty. So you've got thinking on top of thinking. When actually it's recognizing you're human. And allow yourself just to feel crappy sometimes. You're human. Self-compassion is far more powerful than a stick beating of saying I shouldn't be feeling like this. Because that's adding more thought and more judgment upon yourself and the situation. So I think my first bit of advice would be say self-compassion. Give yourself some self-compassion. Allow yourself to, it's okay to feel envious. There's nothing wrong with wanting to have a baby and seeing other people having a baby, and that's what you really long to have. You're naturally going to feel envious. But then it will move on. What keeps it hanging around longer is the thinking you wrap around that. And the more you begin to explore what's creating your experience and where your well-being comes, the more you begin to understand you are okay. You came into the world fully complete, not needing anything. That's who you really are. And as we grow up, become more contaminated by our thinking, it's telling us we need something to be okay. We lose that connection to our true sense of self that knows we are okay, that knows we are complete in this moment. We need nothing in this moment to feel okay. We come back to this present moment. We are okay. You can't not have peace of mind when you're purely 100% present to this moment. And as a species, we're designed to live present to this moment. I'd love to explore that further with you. If you want to just drop me an email and we can set up a conversation if you want. Because I know that part of me feels I'm not doing it justice in this time. But it is actually possible to feel completely okay in yourself and see people been pregnant and be happy for them. When you know you're okay, you can be happy for them. It's when you think you're not okay because you need a baby and it's not fair, no, baby, you come from a place of not being okay. And that's very hard to be happy for someone when you're coming from that space. But recognizing you're human, you're going to feel that from time to time. You're human. So when it happens, it's self-compassion. You're not a bad human being for feeling envious. You're a human being. So self-compassion. There's that allowance of these feelings without judgment or guilt or anything else just means they can move on. They don't hang around so much. And you fall back into feeling okay again. And the more you begin to explore where your well-being really is, the fact it's within you. For me, that gives us more of an emotional foundation, feeling more grounded. So we're less likely to get knocked out of that sense of well-being. It allows us to be more happy for people more often than we are now. So hopefully that's helped. Feel free to put another question if you've got a follow-on from that. Otherwise, we can maybe connect offline. So moving on to the mind-body link, the third area I wanted to cover this evening. I'm quite conscious of time, but I've touched on it, already about the mind-body link in my own personal experience, how my body was definitely affected from my psychological state of mind. The more I found more peace within myself, the more my body fell into more natural states. Which is why with clients, I talk a lot about focusing on Project You rather than Project Baby. Because when you focus on Project You, in my experience, Project Baby tends to take more care of itself. And the mind and body are one system. It's an incredibly powerful system that most times we don't really acknowledge or recognize in our society. And I think partly because the medical fertility are quite split on it. Some people do believe the mind can affect the body. Other people won't really recognize it because the medical world is built upon kind of, I guess, in their mind, truths are built upon double-blind trials. So drug trials are called double-blind trials, where they have a drug, they have a placebo, they have all these conditions through a drug trial to prove the effectiveness of the drug. It's very hard to do that kind of double-blind trials for the mind-body link, and it costs a lot of money to do those kind of trials as well. So it's the drug companies obviously can fund drug trials. There aren't many people who can fund a fully effective mind-body trial to the same degree, the same level. But there are more and more studies coming online that are demonstrating the effectiveness of the mind-body link. The placebo is an interesting area in itself. The placebo effect, you may have heard that, where some people will take a sugar pill. They think they're taking a drug, maybe a painkiller. They're given a sugar pill. And it's amazing how many people actually get the effect of that drug when actually it's a sugar pill, because they believe they're taking the drug. And on if you go to my website, I've got a free kind of getting started pack. Within that is an ebook, and it talks about the mind-body link more in there, some of the some of the kind of statistics and trials and some of the kind of studies that have been done around the placebo effect, and some drugs have been taken off the shelves because actually the placebo was always demonstrating to be as effective, if not more effective, than the drug. If you're interested in this area, Dr. David Hamilton is a great communicator of the mind-body link and the placebo effect. In fact, he himself used to work for a drug company, and he's a scientist, and was so fascinated about the placebo effect and the large number of people that were cured or have a positive effect from the placebo, because the drug company wasn't interested in that, didn't want to study that and explore that more. He was fascinated. It got to a stage where he left working for the drug company, spent full time researching the whole placebo effect and the mind-body link. And he's got some great books that explore that in more detail. And there's some amazing studies that show how our mind does affect our body. Harvard University has spent a long time studying this. Dr. Ellen Langer, who spent 35 years exploring the mind-body link, has done some amazing tests in this area. For example, one test, she got a bunch of men in their 70s and their 80s and put them into this kind of house for 2 weeks. And they lived in this house for 2 weeks. But the decor and everything about that house was set up to be 30 years prior. So this was done in the kind of late 70s, so it was a kind of 50s or 60s or 50s kind of environment, because it was the late 70s, early 80s when she did the test. So everything, the news, the radio, the books, magazines, everything was set up from 30 years prior. Of course, they started reminiscing about those days and talking about it, and they just lived in that kind of reminiscing experience for 2 weeks. And they did a bunch of physical and psychological tests before they went in, and they repeated them when they came out, and the changes were quite dramatic, were quite profound, physically profound. And Ella Langer herself was amazed at the changes she saw. Some guys were hobbling in on sticks and came out like playing touch rugby. The physical difference was that profound. So the mind does affect the body quite profoundly. The pituitary gland in the brain controls hormone levels, including fertility hormones, FSH and LH. It's easily knocked out. Fertility or reproduction requires such a delicate balance of hormones at each stage of the process. It can be quite easily knocked out. So my experience, my clients is the more you fall into a healthy psychological mindset, the more the body falls into a more natural state. At the same time, then you can harness this mind-body link. And even now, if I feel a bit under the weather, I'll visualize my body improving. I've got myself a hypnosis healing. I've recorded myself a healing hypnosis track to listen to that, to visualize my body either boosting my immune system or repairing, if I get a sports injury, all sorts of things. We can actually harness this mind-body link. Boston IVF did a study where they took some patients through IVF, and some of them just went through IVF. Some of them went through the IVF and went through a 6-week mind-body program to support their fertility treatment. And the success rate of those who just went through the IVF on average was 20%. Those that did the fertility treatment was 52%. Dramatic improvement. And these are small scale studies. So there's more work needs to happen, but it does really point towards some massive potentials with the mind-body link and how you can harness it through visualization. And there's one way I can do that. Just visualize your body doing what you want it to do. So for me, it's two things. One is lowering the tide, as it were, letting go of all the fear and stress in our mindset, having that more sense of peace. And from there, we can harness that mind-body link through visualizations and hypnosis and other ways. We can guide our body to do what we want it to do, because our unconscious mind controls all our bodily processes, including our hormone levels. And I'm just going to share the screen again because I want to show you tell some stories, hopefully to encourage you. So I missed that slide on mindset, how our mind can be very, very, very busy. So this is Leah. Share a couple of kind of case studies to hopefully inspire you that it's amazing what differences your body can go through when you utilize and harness the mind-body link. So Leah was 39. This is her with JJ, her baby. She was a client of mine, and she was 39, and when we started working, she'd had 5 miscarriages in 4 years. She had an overactive thyroid. She'd experienced thyroid toxicosis. She had endometriosis. She had tubes and mild tube damage. That was the physical side. She also had a kind of belief that she was too old to get pregnant again. She believed that maybe there was something wrong with her, perhaps due to her age, but she believed maybe something wrong with her. She started to believe maybe she didn't deserve it, like she's feeling being punished for some reason, for leaving things too late or meeting a husband too late. And she started to say similar things actually to my experience, my journey. Why do other people get things so easily? It's not fair. She felt like she's being left out. And why do other people get things so easily, even like things like money? And we started working together, and we worked together for 3 months, and she had a few realizations. In our first conversation, she realized all the thinking she had in her fertility journey she'd had before. It wasn't just about fertility. Well, here she is with JJ. Within 3 months, she was pregnant naturally with JJ. So it can happen. Emily was 36 and diagnosed with premature menopause, had a failed donor cycle. She'd even given up work to focus on her fertility. That's a very common thing to do. My wife did the same. It can be a double-edged sword because suddenly your world shrinks, so you're putting even more investment and energy into Project Baby. So it puts more pressure on the outcome. And she was anxious to get on to the next cycle. She also had a poor relationship with food. And she said, I just need to feel like our future happiness doesn't rest on having a baby. I just need to feel like our future happiness doesn't rest on having a baby. That for me was the crux of it. As soon as she took the pressure off and realized her future happiness doesn't rest on having a baby. As soon as you explore more Project You and explore what she could do with her life to give her more inspiration and a sense of purpose, things fell into place. And Jess was 39, diagnosed with polycystic ovaries, endometriosis, protein S deficiency. She had hormone imbalances. She'd never ovulated regularly and had problematic periods since puberty. She could argue everything was stacked against her. She had a failed IUI and a failed IVF. And when we started connecting, she felt very depressed, very angry and bitter. In fact, spending a lot of time in bed, hiding and crying. She started listening to one of my fertility hypnosis programs, and each day began to feel stronger and stronger and find a little more sense of peace of mind. And then she went on to become pregnant with her next IVF cycle. Now it's twins. But she found that actually getting to that more healthy, peaceful, psychological mindset enabled her to really give herself the best possible outcome for the IVF. So I want to encourage you that the mind-body link is a very powerful, powerful system. There's all sorts of things you can do you maybe hadn't been aware of. So, quite conscious of time, just moving on to any other questions. And I want to talk about a bit how we can take this a bit deeper, because I know in a way we're just kind of scratching the surface here and maybe introducing you to new kind of ideas or concepts, and you maybe wanted to find out how you can find out more to take this deeper for you. Another question coming is, I'm really beginning to embrace what you say about always having the resources to cope with whatever life throws at us and being in the moment. But how do I keep those positive emotions and beliefs while actually going through IVF? I can be positive easily when there's nothing concrete happening. But now that I'm in a cycle, having to go in for scans at ridiculous hours and know that in a few weeks' time we'll actually have an answer, I can't help feel stressed again and why that might not work. What can you suggest we do practically to keep hold of the positives when all becomes real and a bit stressful? Part of the first thing to say is it's not about what we can do. Again, it's an understanding where that stress is coming from. It's all future thinking. You can't be stressed when you are present. It's all thinking about whether it'll work or not, what that means. Okay, it's about recognizing where your well-being comes from. And you say you're finding more sense of peace. then you're losing it. That's natural. We do that from time to time. It's like you've got that sense of peace. It's like the kind of wet bar soap in the bath. It's gone. And we do that, we lose it because then we get caught into thinking. In that moment, we've forgotten. In that moment, we've forgotten where our well-being comes from. In that moment, we've forgotten what's creating that experience of stress. It's not the outcome, it's your thinking, the meaning you're applying to it. Do you think you need something to be okay? Yes, of course, we want to be successful with our treatment. Who doesn't? But your thinking is turning it into a psychological need that you're never going to find happiness and peace and well-being and contentment unless it is successful. And again, now you're human. You're going to feel stressed at times. It's the nature of the beast, and it's not feeling stressed, it's the problem, it's what you think about it. It's the meaning you apply to it, it's what you're telling yourself as a result. So there was one practical thing I'd say is be aware of your breath. Come back to your body. Your body is always in the here and now. When you're feeling stressed, you've gone into future thinking. What happens is we go into future thinking, we create this future scenario that tends to be worse than reality. And the us in that future scenario is not the fully resourced us. As a species, we're designed to live in reality, to live in this moment. So the future us in our future imagined scenario is not the fully resourced us. Not when it feels like we can't cope, but not when it feels stressful. When we're in this moment, we have access to creativity and inspiration and wisdom, all the things that allow us to be in this moment, to cope with the reality. That's why you're not scared of not being successful, you're scared of the thought of not being successful. Because your feelings know nothing about the future, because the future doesn't exist. That's why often people are scared of losing their job, but as soon as they're told actually you are being let go, they get on with it. It's not so scary because they get on with it. They're in reality, they get on with it. The thought is always more scary than the reality. Yes, things are really tough and we are humans, but we're far more resilient than we imagine as well because we have access to these resources. So it's about realizing that any thought that's not in the present moment is pure fantasy. And your feelings are like a barometer to the quality of your thinking. So if you're feeling stressed, it's just saying, ding, a little alarm bell going, say you're caught in some future story. Come back to now. So your feelings are like a alarm bell to let you know whether you're present or not. It's recognizing that feeling of stress is the story you're telling yourself. Again, if you want to go deeper on that, just get in contact and we can explore that further. So just to wrap up, just want to talk about how we can engage more if you want to. Again, there's all the things I can offer. Most of it's free because I say I'm on a mission to try and change the face of fertility support, and I've got some weekly-ish, they're not guaranteed every week because I only send something out if I feel really inspired, so I don't want to fill your inbox with stuff for the sake of it, but I try to send out something pretty much every week. Just some inspiration, some insights, kind of fertilizer for your mind. I love writing, I love talking about this stuff. I'm trying to write a book at the moment, so often I might write a chapter and send it out. It's a way of just helping people open up their mind to these misunderstandings, to see things as, I guess, have a greater understanding of the nature of thoughts and where their feelings come from. So you can always sign up today when you get the Getting Started pack on the website. You'll automatically be subscribed to those emails. You can unsubscribe at any point you want. Also on my website homepage is 14 days of daily inspiration. These are much shorter emails, there's one a day, but much shorter, just a daily dose, daily injection of inspiration or insight or something just to help you be more present to the moment and see through the illusion of the nature of thought and our feelings. I do have a secret Facebook group. What it means by secret is it doesn't even appear on Facebook. No one knows you're in it. No one can see anything in it. No one can see the members. Nothing in it appears on your profile or anything like that. So if you want to be a member, you have to email me and I can add you to it because you won't find it on Facebook. And this is mainly for the kind of the mental and emotional side of their journey. I think there's loads of support forms out there, some great support forms out there. I find often they tend to focus on the physical aspects of the journey. And this Facebook group is mainly for the emotional, to get some emotional support. So feel free to contact me if you want to join that. I do fairly regular webinars, so if you get my emails, you'll be informed about those. I do have hypnosis programs on my website as well. You can download, and I offer do one-to-one work as well, which yeah, if you want to explore that, contact me. But I'm trying to find ways where I can make this more accessible to people, because I know one-to-one may be inaccessible to some people, whether it's cost and anything else. So something I've mentioned before, I'll mention again now, is I have this mind body program, which is now online. It is about focusing on Project You, Project Baby. I'm trying to make this getting more accessible to people, understanding the mindset, your grounding, creating that optimal psychological state for success, emotional resilience, exploring more about your mind-body link, relationships, I say support and relationships. This is a kind of a 6-module, each module about an hour and a half, with a workbook and more tools and techniques and strategies to help kind of, I guess, make that shift for you, to put some of these things into practice in some ways. It's very hard to explain it kind of in a short webinar. Hopefully this has kind of started to point you in a different direction. If you want to go deeper, I've trying to make this available to people in a more accessible way, and it includes my fertility hypnosis programs as well. If you want to look at that, feel free. That's on the web. I can send you a link to you to do that. I limit the numbers of people who access it because I want to give quality support to those people who do the program, so they get direct email support from me. So I'm opening up for another 20 people. There's over 100 people on this webinar, but I want to make it available to another 20 people, and I'll let people know when it's open again. So this is the program. If you want to explore that, I can somehow show it to you here. So yeah, click on that link if you want to find out more. That should be on the screen now. If you want to explore that more, I'm trying to find ways to know one-to-one can be maybe out of people's reach. So trying to find a way where people can engage in a more accessible way. So just reach out, just send me an email if I can help you in any way, or want to talk about this any further. I'm just here to try and help us have this kind of personal mission to change the face of fertility support. So do reach out if I can help. And yeah, if you want to explore the Mind Body program, click on that link, and you'll be taken to the website to find out more. Just to check any other questions before we close. No new questions have come in. So quite conscious of the time. So if you have got a question, you haven't had a chance to ask, do please get in contact, send me an email direct. I'm very happy to respond personally and see if I can help you in any way. So thank you for being with me. Thank you for listening. And I look forward to connecting with you soon. Take care.